And bellying up to the 9-foot homemade oak bar, my name is Craig Toth, your host of Minor League News and Brews, talking about everything around the Pirates minor league system and giving you some beer reviews at the end of the show. This week, bringing back good friend, boots on the ground down there in Bradenton, down in the FCL. Eric Garfield at Eric Birdland. Check his stuff out. Florida Prospect Report as well. All of the stuff. If you want to see any videos of the Pirates low minors, you need to be following him. Eric, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again, and looking forward to talking about the Pirates FCL and their minor league system, some of the storylines that are happening throughout.
Yeah, and before we hopped on here, we talked about like how well the FCL team is doing, something that you had alluded to even, when we were doing the FCL preview as to, how dominant this team could be. Bradenton finally getting, getting going, getting everything underneath them and moving and different stuff. We see highlights from, the Indianapolis Indians and different stuff like that. But, focusing on the FCL and focusing on Bradenton, talk to me about some players. Let's start with Bradenton because you were at the game tonight watching the Marauders. Who are some players that are really getting things going at this point in the season?
Okay, great question. I think really the one guy that changed Bradenton's fortunes and record and their style of play immediately is Kiner Delgado, who they got from the Yankees, who I guess was in their FCL or their Tampa, their A-level team. Now, he is not a large person at all, but he really, for A-level baseball, he brings a great deal to the table, and, he really hit the ground running. Kiner switch hits. He can bat at the top of the order. He should bat at the top of the order. Makes contact often on every type of pitch. And for someone that's maybe 5'9" or 5'10", gets outstanding loft consistently on his fly balls. So they're not going down towards the ground. They're almost all going up. So you can kind of strategize with him as someone who drives the ball into the power alleys or towards the wall. He started a great double play tonight. He turned a great double play last night. So he's got good hands and feet at the infield. So he's low on the mistakes, which really, for A-ball, all the things I described, that's really a very, very full resume. I'm surprised the Yankees dealt him away. I'm more surprised that the Yankees dealt him away now that I've watched him play for a couple weeks. He's exactly what their system needs. So he is one guy, great trade, great minor league deal, and he's really kind of changed the Marauders' fortunes very quickly. I guess their most consistent and trusted bat has been catcher Omar Alfonso. It's fun to watch him now be like a veteran, kind of like a leader. He was someone who was in the FCL for a while and had to learn at that level, but some of those lessons are really paying off. He had a big RBI bases loaded walk tonight. So, just a lot of good positives from Alfonso. I'd say they're the two biggest impact players that if you look at their stats, you might not realize that. But if you watch all the games, that's what's going on.
Yeah, and you see a couple guys like kind of jumping into the lineup. Before we hopped on here, we were talking about, Braylon Bishop. A lot of people, when he had signed with the Pirates, it was like a pretty big deal signing him away from, I believe it was Arkansas, that he was a commit to, and he Kind of seemed like that he was going that direction. They had, visits with him on campus and everything, and the Pirates were able to get him. Also, Axial Plaz with the injuries that kind of came into the catching depth that was in there behind Alfonso and Bradenton, stepping right in and hitting probably two of the hardest hit balls that I've seen people hit in a Marauders uniform in a while.
Yeah, Plaz is really exciting offensively. They brought him in as a pinch hitter tonight, and it was against I guess a bullpen specialist type of arm, not one that I know or have seen before, but he was throwing much harder than the starter. 94 right down the pipe. Plaz was right on it. So there's going to be several more 110-mile-per-hour hits off of his bat. He was not exactly lighting it up in the FCL. He was doing fine and playing regularly, but he wasn't one of the team leaders at all. Some of the names that we're going to say in a couple minutes, they were ahead of him statistically, maybe even metrically, and one of them is actually a catcher, but, the Pirates, I guess whatever they saw data-wise and discussed at those meetings, they made the right move because Plaz has made the adjustment really well. He is a full cleanup type of hitter and one that they obviously trust. They brought him in a pinch hit situation in a run production type of spot, even when he didn't start and he didn't catch or DH.
Yeah, and the other one we talked about, Braylon Bishop, with,
Yep.
I had seen him when I was down there. I believe it was like probably last year, playing on the backfields. It would have been just in the regular spring training. It wouldn't have even have been extended at that point in time when I was down there last year. And I was talking about kind of like his swing and different stuff that he was working on. And you brought up something that was just like such a very good point that, as to why, he chose to start his professional career and why, the Pirates decided to draft him, even though, there was a possibility he might go elsewhere.
You have to stay with an athlete like that through, I guess, the ups and downs of transitioning away from football to baseball, and sometimes it takes a little while to use the athletic gifts that were so easy on the football field. Jump in front of a pass, block it, get your hands on a receiver. These things are not always translatable to following a spinning fly ball from your position into the power alley or going back towards the wall. Sometimes it takes a while to be a brilliant athlete in baseball, and very slowly we're seeing that Braylon has finally started to add strength to his core and to his frame. A little bit of muscle is going a long way. Here's a great indicator of what Braylon is thought of right now. He's been back for like a week or less than a week. He has a couple extra base hits. So tonight I'm standing in right field, in very beyond the fence. Braylon is up, he's announced, and the hitter in front of me takes 4 steps back towards the warning track, like expecting a longer fly ball or a deeper fly ball or a straighter fly ball, but deep. So they're changing their defensive position on Braylon already with just a little bit of strength difference. So, when guys are drafted and you say, or the scouting report says, can add strength to their frame or can do more with a little bit of muscle, sometimes it doesn't take 10 months. Sometimes it takes like 30-some months to actually do that and have it shine through. So he's one guy that's showing that, and so is Rivas. The more Rivas lifts, the harder and straighter his throws are from anywhere in the diamond. So you really love to see those types of ways to observe progress that, again, are just not always included in the counting stats.
Yeah, and I feel like that, like up here in Pittsburgh, we kind of get stuck on, ages, and we get stuck on players that make it up to the majors like very, very quickly and are like, 20, 21, 22 years old. And there are some of those players, within the major leagues. I hope the Pirates, have a guy like that at some point in time. But I mean, those guys are talked about so much because, I mean, that's the exception. That's not the rule that happens within baseball. I mean, I was laughing the other day when, people were talking about, well, Nick Gonzalez, 24, 25 years old, like, needs to get stuff going here. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, did we like get stuck in some sort of time warp where like, most Major League Baseball players like really hit their stride at like 27, 28 years old? I mean, obviously the guys that start to play better and at younger, I mean, they're the ones that kind of catch our eye, but I mean that's not the norm. And for some of these guys, especially like the way that Ben Cherington has looked at things is, drafting a lot of, especially out of the high school ranks, those multi, sport athletes, guys that were, both athletic on the football field as well as the baseball field or whatever sport they may play. And these are times where guys are just, for the first time in their lives, focusing on one sport. And then also, I mean, I'm pretty sure most of us, when we were, 17, 18 years old, weren't as built as we were when we were, 22, 23, 24. I mean, you do have to grow into your body a little bit. But going down to the FCL, you said this during the FCL preview, this was a team that had the, on paper, had the ability to be, heads and shoulders above or the best team in the FCL. And, with some of those players that we're going to be talking about, they're kind of showing that right now.
Yeah. I was right. They're awesome, especially offensively. I think first game they won this week on Monday, the first three hitters were 8 for 10 with, I want to say, 4 RBIs and 3 runs. The next game, they were 7 for 13 with 4 RBIs, 5 runs, and like 3 extra base hits. Both days, Emmanuel Torrero was batting second. But in the FCL, they're like a year older. Their nucleus is a year older, including guys like Yordani De Los Santos and like Plaz, who started out there. So they're slightly more experienced in a league where that makes such a difference. I'm actually looking at the Braves roster right in front of me. I just can't tell you how many 2005 and 2006 birthdays there are. Their youngest catcher is their oldest catcher is born in 2004. He's 19. So some of these teams are just so full. Their whole roster is 17 and 18 years old, and some of them have like less than 30 innings pitched as a pro, less than 200 at-bats as a pro. The Pirates are slightly more advanced. And, Tony Blanco Jr., Yordani De Los Santos, Carlos Caro is an infielder. He's been focusing on second base. That guy could probably play Bradenton right now and give Kalai Harrison a run for his money. So there's Estuar Suero. These are fine. I'm going to tell you, Johnny Severino, anyone that's listening to this and is a Pirates fan, stop listening right now and go look at Johnny Severino's stats in the month of May 2024 and realize that he was traded for Carlos Santana. Your FCL nucleus, Craig, is just, it's exactly what you want it to be and even a little bit better. So I don't see this as a playoff team. I see this as the best team out of all the teams that I'm watching. I don't want to say they're going to run away with the FCL, but I think they're going to be there fighting for it at the end. I'd be very surprised if they're not. Also, Vandermeeth, the best pitcher in the FCL. They're totally loaded.
Yeah, and we're talking about like a Yordani De Los Santos, performed well in the FCL last year. I mean, kind of got his call up to Bradenton and wasn't seeing the ball as well, wasn't performing as well. People like it's so weird to me. Like I know that repeating a level or going back to a level can be seen as a negative, but I would rather see something like that happen now. And I've said this a million times on the podcast to anybody who's listened. I can't wait until I can put like the old, format of minor league baseball out of my head. Most of these guys would probably be playing for the Bristol Pirates at this point in time. Some of them would be up here in West Virginia playing for the Black Bears. So I still have to like train my brain to think about that kind of stuff. I'm actually going to a Black Bears game for my birthday this year. Nobody else is in town at a time that will work for the planning on a Sunday. So going to go see the MLB Draft League. So that should be kind of fun. And the kids, I believe they're going to enjoy it. But it's going to be bittersweet for me to walk in there and not see the players that the Pirates just drafted. I'm going to see the players the Pirates could draft.
Might draft, right.
Yeah, so it's definitely a very cool thing. But as we've been talking here, I mean, we're talking about like the development that's going on, down at Pirate City, down in Bradenton. And I mean, we've talked about this at length a bunch of times, that the changes that have, kind of been made down there, the training facility, the changes that have been made down there. And we see these players perform and get off to like such good starts, good things when you're in the FCL, when you're in Bradenton. Some of that translates up into Greensboro. Before we hopped on here, talking about Tamar Johnson, and that stuff going up. But once like we see these players get to Altoona, and this like actually kind of breaks my heart to a degree, because everybody knows that I'm a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, but I've been an Altoona Curve fan I'm going to be 45 years old, since I was like 18. So this is kind of where we're missing that step to get players over the hill to basically get them to their full potential. And so like I know the answer is not to skip players from Greensboro straight to Indianapolis, but I'm just wondering where like this disconnect is with the developmental path, because it seems like the Pirates and what Ben Cherington and what John Baker and they've done with the international pipeline and identifying young players that and trading for them, as you had mentioned, trading a Carlos Santana, trading Rich Hill and G-Man Choi to bring in other young players and different stuff. I just worry about these players because they're performing so well down there, and I know they're all not going to perform well, but you honestly just need one of those guys to break through.
Anyone that's listening to this, please understand that Craig just expressed that he's a rational Pirates supporter. And before I answer or give my opinion, I'm just going to thank you for being that, because there's a lot of people who are not, and it drives them to be more angry than logical or level-headed. And this is the kind of issue or problem that really requires a solution that's not based on how mad you are or how sad you are or how anxious you are about it not happening. This is not a situation where we need to apply emotion. We've discussed more than once and at length, and we will again, that the Pirates don't have a problem acquiring talented athletes from around the world, from a draft class, from an international draft, whatever the scenario or the circumstances are. The Pirates can find the right people and acquire the right people, draft them or trade for them, whatever. So something is happening along the pipeline for someone like Johnny Severino. We like him. I see more than a low minors player in him, but yeah, I'm worried about what's going to happen as he climbs several rungs up. Is he going to run into that same wall that other players with a little less pedigree or some with a little more pedigree have? I'm going to estimate, Craig, that the problem is not in team philosophy, in talent acquisition. We already said that. I'm going to estimate that the problem comes from personnel. I don't know every coach in every locker room, in every complex or every Pirates facility, but some of the problems and some of the profiles of players who stagnate in the mid-minors are very similar. It's not Jace Bowen's fault he plays like Jace Bowen or he's built like Jace Bowen. He was fine working through deficiencies in the low minors, but in the mid-minors, he's just another case, and there's a lot of guys. I don't want to name them individually to where it sounds like I'm taking shots at them, but a lot of these guys were draft picks with some cachet that look like they're just not going to be either high minors contributors or major league contributors. So this is the longest winded way of saying I'm going to think that it's either coaches, trainers, or specialists, I don't know who, that just can't get the most out of their athletes. And when Jonathan Johnson, was the manager here at the Marauders, he won a championship with, a non-superstar lineup that had Andy Rodriguez. So the guy that's the manager now, different manager, different style, different type of communication, but at some level, somebody recognized, hey, this guy JJ is good, but we need another type of instructor to get the most out of the guys that are either here or coming up. Whoever that person was that made that observation, it seems out of left field, but it was correct. So people like that need to look at the coaches. Who's telling Tamar how to break out of a slump? Or Cheng? Who's telling Cheng to get back to who he is and observing pitches the way that he does? If those people aren't getting the most out of their athletes, replace them.
Yeah, because that's the one you mentioned towards the end there is Sung-Chae Chang is the one that's, Tamar is definitely, I put that up to, in some ways, I can put, okay, he's 19 years old. Do you know what I mean? Like, he still should be performing better, but then I'm like, okay, he's 19 years old.
Yep.
But with Sung-Chae Chang, like the way that he performed in Bradenton, the way that he performed in Greensboro, and then he did struggle at the end of last year, and that does happen with some guys, once they take the step up in that level. But this year with him, with his OPS, still sitting under 700, and he's not a guy that's going to have a ton of power. Obviously, people were saying, oh, maybe he should have a little more power because he did it in Greensboro. There's a lot of guys that do that. But I don't know what happened to his game that he basically is at this point in time, a 211 hitter with a 695, 697 OPS. Like, that's not the type of player he is. And he's the type of player that, it falls more along the lines of a guy that I'm not saying that he would be that he's going to be an all-star at the major league level, but he fits into that profile of a guy that should be a contributor. Obviously, the Pirates saw that as well, adding him to their 40-man, and now you just see the drop-off, and it's just like, well, did the Pirates misidentify him as somebody that should be on the 40-man, or is he being, like you're talking about, just like misinstructed, I guess, in a way, to be the type of player that he should be?
I honestly can't think of a better example to illustrate the point we're trying to figure out, because the things that make him good, effective, the things that help him impact a team positively, they are foundational skills. They're having a great eye, recognizing which pitches to attack, recognizing which pitches to spin on. That's him. And that's what he's not doing. That's the strange part. You would think, hey, we can have a couple individual cage sessions with this guy. We can get him back on track. He's been this way for years. He's been this way since amateur baseball in another country. Like, we can get him back on track in a second. And they, unfortunately, I don't want to take shots at anybody, especially people I don't know, but they have not been able to get him back on any type of positive track. To me, I don't want to say that that's scary, but this is who he is. Like, a lot of things are not going right with Tamar. He's not making the best swing decisions. He's not showing the elite strike zone knowledge that he has, again, even when he was in high school. Somehow, when all these forces are converging against him, he can still walk enough to get a 400 on-base percentage. Everything that's converging against Chang right now, he just can't put it together. He can't help a team. And it's crazy to say that at all, because the player that I saw developing here, he can help a team in so many ways. So, his progress kind of like stopping or running into a wall, that's a big red flag to me, and it should be for a lot of other people. The system is good at getting the right kind of players in it, but if you can't get the most out of them year after year, and then turn that into major league production, then that's an element that might need a different type of solution, or maybe a different group of people implementing the philosophy. I hopefully I'm saying that as nice as possible, because I'm not like fire this person, but when the evidence is in front of you, your organization with standards, you want those standards to be pointed towards winning. And Chang's arrow was straight up, and now it's kind of not.
Yeah, it's really, like I said, that's the difficult part to see in all of this, is that, trying to identify, people that actually have the ability to make those decisions, to, kind of make those changes. That's obviously not us, but they have to see this as well, because, I'm not saying, there are, can't miss prospects, but it's also, there's guys that are can't screw up type prospects either. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's guys that are prospects that, like I said, you were talking about that arrow being up, and we're not knowing, what his ceiling would be. But I saw him, like, you have to have those types of players that are major league contributors. So this is something that we're definitely going to have to follow up on, and definitely going to have to continue to talk through. Hopefully we have some more data. Hopefully once the guys make it up, from Bradenton and the FCL, maybe something magically sprinkles out of the air on the way out to State College into Altoona and changes the fortunes. But for right now, it definitely hasn't. But Eric, once again, thank you so much for jumping on here. Can't wait to do it again. Like I said, everybody, if you are not following, Eric at Eric Birdland, I will always say this every single time. Yes, he's definitely an Orioles guy, but he's also a Pirates FCL guy. He's a Bradenton Marauders guy. He's with those guys all the time, following them. You want to see the videos, man, he's definitely got them. Eric, thank you so much, brother. Can't wait to do this again.
No problem. I'm in anytime you need me, and all the listeners, please know that we recorded this late at night after Craig did some good parenting, being a Little League dad. So thanks for having me on, and thanks for fitting me into your busy schedule.
Oh, not a problem, man. Are you a fan of the Pittsburgh Pirates and supporting small businesses? If so, Bucs in the Basement has you covered. Introducing the Bucs in the Basement Vouch Store with products from places like Split Rock Coffee. Coffee with a purpose. Established, owned, and operated by disabled veterans, sworn to protect America. Or Camp Craft Cocktails. More than cocktails. It's a mission to build longer tables where everyone is welcome. We try and vouch for these products. Bucs in the Basement, proudly brought to you by Vouch. Visit our Vouch store at bucsinthebasement.com or simply click on the link in the show notes. It's that time again to check in on the Pirates' top 5 prospect performers in no particular order. Starting with number 1, Braylon Bishop. And I feel like in some ways, even the most avid prospect junkie or watcher of the Pirates minor league systems may have forgot about Braylon a little bit. Back in 2021, he was the 14th round draft pick out of high school. I believe it was Arkansas High School, which was kind of funny because there was also that story going around that he would hold on to his commitment to the University of Arkansas and not join the Pittsburgh Pirates to start his professional career. Ended up signing with the Pirates for $268,700. Braylon was the 88th ranked prospect according to Baseball America in that draft, 94th according to MLB Pipeline. Jumped right into his professional career by joining the FCL Pirates, was with them also the following year in 2022. Didn't get a lot of great results, only had 162 plate appearances, /215, 340, 274, good for a 614 OPS, and 84 weighted runs created plus, did have one home run. The next year got the bump up to Bradenton, didn't last very long in Bradenton, only 33 plate appearances, slashing 111, 273, 111. That's a 384 OPS. Right back down to the FCL, which would be technically his third season, but really the second full season in the FCL. Got 113 plate appearances, /220, 363, 341, a 704 OPS. And then this season starts out in the FCL again. Only got 11 plate appearances there. Knew it looked like at that point in time he was, a little bit too advanced for that league. Slashing 333, 363, 333, and 970 OPS. And now has joined the Bradenton Marauders, extremely small sample size, 31 plate appearances, slashing 296, 387, 556, good for a 943 OPS, got a dinger, he's got a double, he's got a triple. As Eric and I had talked about, has, kind of added some weight, some muscle in the lower portion. The thing that I like to point out about a lot of these young high school guys is the fact that if Braylon would have held on to his commitment to the University of Arkansas, he would be coming out in this year's draft. So a lot of people will say, okay, well, a couple years in the FCL, not really any success last year in Bradenton, back in Bradenton again. But if he was drafted in this year's, the upcoming MLB draft, he would be probably starting in the FCL or Bradenton more than likely towards the end of the season, and would be starting in Bradenton, possibly again next year. He might follow, more of the Charles McAdoo and Mitch Jebb path where, in their second year, first full season, they would be in Greensboro. But that's something that is a possibility for Braylon. Number 2, going up to Greensboro, and I think we're going Bradenton up this time, so maybe that's the particular order, is Luis Peralta, the left-handed reliever. That's Freddie Peralta's younger brother, signed back in 2017 for $110,000. was a starter in Bradenton back in 2022. Showed some flashes of just downright like brilliance in some performances, striking out a lot of guys. He had 60 innings pitched that year, 97 Ks, but 44 walks. That's a 1.674 whip. Not great. In 2023, he was a kind of like a starter reliever swingman in Bradenton. Some similar results as far as the Ks. He pitched 55 2/3 innings, 67 Ks, 35 walks. The whip came down a little bit, but not much, 1.519. And then this year in Greensboro, only 18 innings pitched so far, all in relief, has only given up 1 earned run, has struck out 36 batters, 9 base on balls. The whip, below 1, the 0.944 whip. Don't really look at the ERA that much, but I'll mention it anyway. The 0.50 ERA. Doing very good things. The left-handed reliever, really like to see it. Is getting, a little bit older. Nice to see that he's made this transition to the reliever. Hopefully the success continues. Hopefully maybe getting a bump up to Altoona at some point this season. Number 3, going up to Altoona for Thomas Harrington. I always mention this. Thomas Harrington, first round Comp A, 36 overall, 2022 out of Campbell University. This is what I always mention. The Fighting Camels. Love that name. Got to get that hat. Signed for $2.047. So basically $2.05 million. Started out this season on the IL. Got the right shoulder injury that was announced when I was down in Bradenton for the prospect breakout game. About a week later was diagnosed as a right rotator cuff strain. This is a kid. He's got a 5-pitch mix. Kind of came back onto people's radars again in the article that Alex Stump wrote about Jared Jones and the development of his fastball, getting that ride on the fastball from working with Harrington and kind of not working with him. I mean, the guys were, doing some online gaming, playing some Fortnite, sitting around and, talking about pitch grips and everything. And that's like Jones wanted to have the ride that Harrington's fastball has. Harrington obviously does not throw it as fast as Jones. It's not that, 99, 100 plus. It's more of like the 93, 94, maybe 95, but more likely 94. He's set to start today when you're listening to this on May 24th at 6:05 p.m. In his first 2 starts in Altoona, only 7 innings pitched, working his way back up from that injury. 0 hits, 1 base on ball, 9 Ks. Don't even really want to mention the whip, but it is very, very, very low, people here. You could see that with that. He has a 0.143 whip. That's not going to last. But he is going to build up on those innings. Somebody that, has a 5-pitch mix, very advanced, finds the zone with it, and is just like one of those guys that he's a pitcher already. He's not a thrower. He's in AA. He's already a pitcher. It's just going to be how well that stuff plays as he moves throughout the system. Number 4, Matt Gorski, the 2nd round pick in 2019 out of Indiana, the University of Indiana. He kind of burst onto the scene in 2022 in his time through Greensboro and Altoona before he had that quad injury that slowed down his season. Slashed 280, 358, 598, good for a 956 OPS, hit 24 home runs. 2023 saw him take a little bit of a step back. It's something I've talked about. I believe I talked about in last week's episode as well. Did have 20 home runs between Altoona and Indy, but saw his OPS go down to 725, slashing 231, 291, 434. This year in Indy, it's not a completely small sample size, has really come on in the recent weeks, slashing 282, 315, 598, good for a 913 OPS, 7 home runs, 6 doubles, and yes, you're going to hear this right, 5 triples. The guy does have his speed back, plays a very good center field, plays a very good left field, also plays some first base, which is probably why his name is coming up more and more, along with Jake Lamb, who I had talked with Rock about in the most recent episode of Bucs in the Basement. Go back and listen to that. But for one thing, if there's a downside to Matt Gorski's game, it's going to be the strikeouts to walks. In 2022 in Altoona, struck out 29.6% of the time, walked a little under 10%, like to see that 9.4. In Altoona, when he was struggling in 2023, saw the walk rate go down to 6.8, but also saw the strikeout rate go down to 25.5. This year in Indy, has the 5.5% walk rate, not great, and have seen his K rate go back up to 29.7%. So if there's one thing to monitor with him, it's the strikeout to walk rate. Does have the power, does have speed, is able to play multiple positions, and is versatile, something that Ben Cherington and John Baker like in their players in the minors, in the majors. Number 5, Henry Davis. And this one, I know I've been talking a lot here. This is going to be a very long episode. I know that we usually pride ourselves on 30 minutes of Bucs, and this one definitely will not be 30 minutes of Bucs. Henry Davis, something that a lot of people were pointing out and pointing to the struggles that he had when he went down to Indianapolis in the beginning. From May 7th through May 12th, and this was like poster board material on X and everything from beat writers, everybody. I mean, it was but at the time he had 27 plate appearances, 19 at bats, was batting 158, 0 home runs, 7 Ks, had been hit by 5 pitches. Now, over the last 37 plate appearances, 31 at bats, extremely small sample size, has a 419 average over that time, 6 home runs, 4 Ks, is still getting hit a little bit, 3 hit by pitches. That's something that's always been a part of his game. But there's 2 things that I'm going to point out here that just goes through my mind with watching him, listening to people talk, reading what people are writing about him. The first is that Henry Davis is standing more upright. And they're saying, well, why couldn't somebody at, the major league level discover that about him and different stuff? But we're going back to the offseason where everybody was praising the work that he was putting in at Driveline. It wasn't even something that was, with the team and having that new bat path and that new stance. And it was working out well in spring training. Well, he needed to go down and slow himself down, if that makes sense. He needed to hit that reset button, start with a stance that is maybe a little bit more natural to him. He does have a little bit of a crouch and just the way that he stands normally, but is standing a little bit more upright, seeing that power. So, and honestly, this is something that is being worked on by the major league staff down, because people are quick to point out that they send people back down to AAA to get right, and why can't they fix it at the majors? And then when they do that, that's something that Jared Triolo did last year, was sent back down, came back up. Obviously had the BABIP or the BABIP influenced average when he came back up, but it's something that Andy Haynes and all of his staff and assistant hitting coordinator and everybody came up with a plan for him and to work on that in AAA. So you can't really say like, okay, we sent him back down because we couldn't fix him and now somebody else is going to fix him, in the same breath that you're saying that the problems that are happening throughout the entire minor league system are the problems of Andy Haynes. So you can't have one and you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's all together. And the other piece of this is that noticing that he has started 8 games at catcher, started 5 games at DH at his time in Indianapolis, short time there. And it's something that I've kind of been advocating for since even before this season started, and how many innings that Henry Davis was going to be able to catch. And it's something that, asking him that it's okay, I know Endy gets hurt, but then all of a sudden you are, the full-time catcher and you're the starting catcher and you're going to start all the time. Then you have the injury to like Jason DeLay, and maybe that changed it a little bit as well. But Chris and I have pointed out a million times, like the way that the Atlanta Braves did things with William Contreras. At the time when he came up and actually started playing a lot more in 2022 with Atlanta, he caught 57 games, but also DH 31 games. When he went to Milwaukee in 2023, he caught 108 games, but also DH 29 games. And then this year in Milwaukee, where he is in the MVP conversation, he's not catching every day. He has, 40 games behind the plate, but he also has 9 games at DH because as these young catchers, they need this rest. And I've talked about Adley Rutschman, I don't know how many times I've talked about him as well. And you look at Adley Rutschman this year, has started 29 games at catcher. He's DH 17 times. Last year, started 104 games at catcher, DH 45 times. When he came up, he started 84 games at catcher, but still DH 23 times. The bat is the most important thing with Henry, and to be able, I believe, to keep that bat going, you have to have that balance between DH and catcher. It's something that I will advocate for and continue to advocate for. So we'll kind of see how the Pirates continue to work on him while he spends his time down in Indy.
A pitcher of beer, a pitcher of beer. Let's order another pitcher of beer. That pitcher of beer should come over here. I love that pitcher of beer.
I'm going to get through this as quick as possible here because, you guys have hung around long enough to hear the beer reviews on this episode of Minor League News and Brews. Have finally made my way through all of the ones that I've kept on the shelf from the time of the brother-in-law, the bro baseball weekend that happened. It seems like a lifetime ago at this point in time, but was just a little over a month ago in the Strip District after, scarfing down some good Permani Brothers, having an icy light. We stopped in at Aslan Beer Company, tried the Bringing Sexy Back American IPA, came in at 6.4%. Because of the name, because of the taste, this one gets a 500 on the weighted based on batting average scale. Bring that down to 450. And then before the game and after the game, we spent some time at 4 Points Brewing. Tried the new Pony West Coast IPA coming in at 6%. Give that one a 425. Bring it down to 375, also from 4 Points. The Night Moves American IPA coming in at 7.2%. Give that one a 425. Bring it down to 375. And then finally, the XO, the Hugs and Kisses and Hugs American IPA coming in at 5%. Give that one a 475. Bring it down to 425. That's the best beer I had at 4 Points Brewing. Gonna have to maybe go over to Creekside Beer, pick up a 4-pack, maybe have them review a 4-pack before next week's episode. But until then, let's go Indians, let's go Curve, let's go Hoppers, let's go Marauders, and let's go FCL Pirates.